Hey guys, sorry I can't be there to present this personally. I have some personal stuff going on, so I'm actually not able to make it to class at this time. Um, but I definitely enjoyed the opportunity to record this for you guys. Hopefully, you enjoyed the article. My article was Discover Why the Accursed Mountains Are Europe's Most Misunderstood Region. This was written by Oliver Smith and was published in Lonely Planet magazine, which is a magazine aimed at hikers and walkers and people that enjoy those activities. This article actually was reposted on their website recently again because they're going through their archives and reposting things because of COVID to entertain people while they're locked at home and can't go out and about. The target audience of this piece is definitely the same as the target audience for the Lonely Planet magazine. It's aimed at hikers, at walkers, at nature lovers, but really I think anybody would enjoy this article, especially those who kind of enjoy hearing about the history of a place. One spot that really spoke to me as someone who enjoys walking and hiking was where the author said, "Before long, I am far from settlements, walking through wildflower meadows where the ground itself seems to move with the fluttering of thousands of butterflies." I think that's one of the one of the more poetic spots that he starts describing the area, but it's also something that to imagine being in a wildflower meadow immediately with butterflies at the beginning of a walk, it just kind of sets the pace for this very fairy tale-esque feel to the entire hike. At another point early on, the author also says, "It feels like a mini Yosemite in the Balkans, a real back of the wardrobe secret land that has somehow evaded the attention of the outside world." I think most people who hike, the idea of an untouched outdoors definitely appeals to us. The underlying messages and themes in this article, there's a couple that I noticed. One of them is the beauty of the nature of this place, and how it almost seems like a deception that covers up the unhappy and dark history that exists in the Accursed Mountains. Another one that I noticed was that of borders, and how, because these mountains border on 3 different countries, oftentimes on the trail hiking through them, you cross from border to border without realizing it, even though in the past these might have been disputed areas. One of the people that the author interviewed said, "Life here is beautiful. If you spend time here, then you will grow a beard to your waist and probably live to be 120 years old, and you'll never be able to live without the smell of pine trees in summer." The article tends to be really, really, really poetic, both in the interviews and then also in the author's own words when describing the area. And that alongside the pictures make it seem like this gorgeous, fairy tale untouched wilderness almost. So the author's tone, I noticed, switched every now and again throughout the article itself. Anytime he's describing the area and describing the scenery, or even describing the path along through it and the people that he's talking to, he gets really poetic. He uses very flowery, descriptive language, very alive language. And then anytime he talks about the history of the place, it becomes really, really matter of fact and straightforward, which makes sense for the subject matter. But it ends up being almost shocking every time that you go from this, fantasy description to all of a sudden straightforward, factual account of the terrible things that happened in this place, or the ways that it has been disputed over the years. So the author seems to write mainly for Lonely Planet. However, he does have quite a few other publications that he's worked with over the years. He also does make short videos on similar subject matter to his articles themselves, and a lot of them seem really interesting. 2 articles that stood out for me are After the Flood, was written for Lonely Planet magazine. The description of which reads, "Journey among snowy mountains and ancient monasteries in the little visited country of Armenia to hear stories of Noah's Ark and those troubled souls who have searched for it in vain," which seems like a very interesting subject matter, and kind of goes on to showcase how often he writes things that combine the scenery of a place alongside maybe the history behind it. Another article that he wrote fairly recently, actually, was written for Outside Magazine, and it's Sudden Solitude on One of the World's Busiest Mountains. I actually read quite a bit of this article, and it was very interesting. I'm looking forward to finishing it when I get the time. And it's about the author's experience hiking Snowdon, which is a very popular hiking spot in Wales. It's a mountain. When COVID-19 shut it down, and he said that it was very abrupt. From his description, the difference between how busy Snowdon can actually be during a season and how it was suddenly empty because of COVID. The author, again, uses very poetic and descriptive language. He's also very good at using verbs to help describe the visuals of something. For example, in this sentence, he says, "There are mighty limestone mountains crumbling into wind-scoured boulder fields and stone shepherds' huts, their chimney stacks toppled and slumped in mimicry of the peaks above." Instead of saying something straightforward like the chimney stacks were falling down, he makes sure to use verbs like toppled and slumped to try and help you envision it better. And the description of mountains crumbling into wind-scoured boulder fields is definitely painting a very specific picture that it makes it all the more easier to try and imagine it, and definitely sticks along with the theme of this fairy tale, fantasy-esque type landscape. So the author's really good at painting a picture with his words when he's describing it. And he gets, like I said, he gets very poetic a lot of the time. And it starts right from the very beginning. In one of the first paragraphs, he starts telling a story of how they say that the accursed mountains came about. He says, "God took 6 days to create the earth, the sea, and the sky. But, so a local legend goes, the devil only took 24 hours to create the accursed mountains. It was a full day's work. He would have scored deep ravines with his pointy tail. He would have sculpted spires of rock with his evil little claws." He then goes on later in the next paragraph to say, "Setting out on a morning stroll in early summer, you suspect the Almighty would be impressed by his rival's handiwork, because, with a devilish deception, it's a place of radiant, intense loveliness." This is definitely a place that I would love to experience. The pictures alone look amazing, but the author's description make it seem even more so. He calls it one of the last untouched areas of wilderness. And I think the idea of an untouched wilderness is a hiker's or a walker's daydream. Not often do you get the chance to experience it. I definitely wouldn't do it alone myself. Traveling alone is something that tends to make me fairly nervous, but I would definitely love to take someone along, a friend or a family member, and take a little bit of time and try to just experience the area. Thanks again, guys.